Have you ever had that deep, nagging feeling that something is just a little bit off in our modern world? Well, today we're exploring a really fascinating idea. That feeling isn't just in your head. It might just be a symptom of our disconnection from the planet. And, believe it or not, there's a map to find our way back. Okay, let's get into it.
You know, it all boils down to this one huge question. It's maybe the biggest one we can ask. For literally thousands of years, everyone from philosophers to spiritual seekers has been trying to figure it out. Who am I really?
And what if the answer isn't about becoming someone new, but about remembering who you've always been? It's pretty amazing, right? Ancient traditions like Hinduism and modern fields like ecopsychology kind of land on the same idea. We have a true self, but we've either forgotten it or, as this quote says, been wrangled out of knowing. I love that phrase.
And that feeling of being a forgotten self, it's not just some abstract philosophical thing. It shows up in very real ways, doesn't it? As this kind of alienation or emotional pain or just that constant low-level feeling that something's missing. And a lot of this is tied directly to our separation from the natural world.
In fact, this collective pain actually has a name: Earth misery. Think of it as the traumatic stress we all feel from being so disconnected from nature. It's this force that messes with the balance we're supposed to have, not just with the world around us, but inside of us too.
So where does this misery come from? Well, it's fueled by the stories we're told. Our culture for a long time has been telling us this big lie, that we humans are somehow separate from nature, or even better than it. But deep down, I think we all know that's not right. And that conflict, well, it hurts.
Okay, so if those stories are the problem out there in the world, what's the mechanism inside our own heads? What exactly is it that's blocking us from seeing our true selves and creating all this misery?
This framework has a name for it: variables, or simply X. You can think of these variables as all the stuff that's layered on top of our true nature, our ego, our past traumas, our personality, and all those wrangled stories we've been fed. They create this thick filter between who we really are and how we see the world.
And this quote from Dr. Michael Cohen just nails it. The variables are like putting on a pair of smudged, warped glasses. They aren't you, they just distort the way you see yourself and everything else. They bend the truth.
So this is the whole point, right? If we want to see past these distortions, if we want to take off the glasses and find our way back home, we're going to need a guide. We need a map.
And luckily, a map already exists. It's got ancient roots. What you're looking at here is the original body-mind-intellect chart, or BMI chart, from Vedanta philosophy. It's this brilliant diagram that's meant to map out the entire human experience, from our deepest self all the way to the everyday world.
Now this is where it gets really, really cool. On the left, you see that original, ancient map, but on the right, you see how it's been adapted for our times into something called the Greenwave 54 self-chart. It takes that ancient wisdom and plugs in what we know from ecopsychology. Let's look at the biggest change.
The most important update here is the word they use for that distorting filter we talked about. The old map called it vasanas, which is a Sanskrit word for our deep-seated habits and conditioning. The new map just calls it variables, X, a term that's a little easier for us to grasp today. It's our personality, our stories, all that stuff. Same concept, just updated language.
So let's just trace the path on this new chart. At the very top, the purest part is the GW54 self. That's our true essence. But that pure essence immediately gets filtered through that tangled up layer of our variables. Only then does it reach our tools for living, our body, mind, and intellect. And those tools are what we use to perceive objects, feel emotions, and think thoughts.
And this, right here, is the absolute game changer. You are not your body. You are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. Those are just the instruments you use. Your true identity is the Greenwave 54 self that's using those instruments. The problem is that experience is getting warped by the filter of your variables.
So that naturally leads to the big practical question. Okay, this map is great, but how do we actually use it? How do we start to clean those distorting lenses, strip away the variables, and actually reconnect with who we really are?
And the answer is probably not what you think. The way back isn't about thinking harder, or analyzing more, or reading more books. It's actually about getting out of our heads completely. The path back is sensory. It's about feeling.
Which brings us to this number, 54. So, what's so special about 54?
Well, get this. According to this way of thinking, we humans have way more than the 5 senses we're taught about in school. We have at least 54 distinct natural senses. These are our built-in antennas for connecting with the world. But for most of us, in our modern lives, they're dormant, and we can only reawaken them through direct, hands-on contact with nature.
So the whole journey can be broken down into these 4 steps. It's pretty straightforward. First, you just start to recognize your variables. Notice the stories you tell yourself. Second, you get outside, go into nature. Third, you consciously try to engage all 54 of your senses. And fourth, by doing that, you let your true, authentic GW54 self start to wake up. And where does this journey lead? It leads to a state of what's called homeostatic balance. That's just a fancy way of saying a state of perfect equilibrium. It's this beautiful place where healing yourself and healing your relationship with the planet aren't 2 separate things anymore. They become the exact same thing.
And when you reach that state, you become what this philosophy calls an Earth avatar. How cool is that? It's someone who gets, on a deep level, that they're not just a person living on the planet, but that they're a living expression of the planet, a hologram of the Earth in human form.
And look at that, we've come full circle. Remember that Earth misery we talked about at the beginning? That pain, that disconnection? When we do the work of identifying and clearing away our variables, we don't just find ourselves, we get rid of the very thing that was causing the misery in the first place. So, I'll just leave you with this final thought to chew on. We have the map. We know the path. What do you think would happen if you decided to stop listening to all those old, wrangled stories and started listening with all 54 of your senses to the Earth instead?